the Isle of Skye was certainly one of our favorite stops. Welcome to Well Travel Life, Jonathan and Jennifer. And you're about to watch our video on the Isle of Skye in Scotland.
Actually, this is a series of videos.
About the Isle of Skye.
And we're going to take you through a tour of the house that we stayed in because we really thought that was special. Quanbeg in Skiboast.
Yeah, that was amazing.
And then we'll also do a video about sort of the island from Portree up. And then we'll do an area including the Quarang, the dinosaur tracks, and Staffen Island. Also, we'll be doing a video about the southern part of Skye, which includes Dunvegan Castle and the Talisker Distillery and that sort of things.
You'll also meet our guide for one of the days where we did a road trip of the Isle of Skye with a very colorful guide. And I'll just tell you right now, you'll want to turn on your Scottish
listening device.
Yeah, because you're going to have to pay attention. The scary part is at the beginning of the day, I understood almost nothing that he said. By the end of the day, I kind of could understand it, which was scary. But
the clan chief's mother and father were friends with the then Prime Minister.
And Tammy is with us on this trip as well.
Shout out to Tammy Edible.
We've got both hidden gems as well as the iconic places that you have to see when you're on the island.
Some remarkable drone footage.
Somebody's responsible for all the good drone footage.
To get to the Isle of Skye, you can either take a ferry from Mallaig across to the Isle, or you can drive the causeway, which takes you past Loch Alsh and the Eilean Donan Castle. The castle sits out on an island between Kyle of Loch Alsh and the Isle of Skye. It is probably one of the most photographed and iconic castles in all of Scotland, not only for its setting on the island, but for its 13th century beginnings as a stronghold for the Clan Mackenzie. We stopped in Kyle of Loch Alsh to load up on groceries before we crossed the causeway. We made one more stop at the Plock, which is a nature reserve and conservancy, but they also had a fast car charger. So that was our final stop before going across the causeway.
The Plock. And there's a parking station and an EV charger, which was good for us. But you can go through the Otter Gate and up the hill, and there's parking, additional parking up there, as well as picnic tables and trails. And they have them marked for easy, medium, and more difficult. One thing to keep in mind, there are no public restrooms here at the Plock. Those you have to go to in town. So make sure you stop at the village before you get to the Plock. The easy trails are completely accessible even by wheelchair. And all along the trails, they have markings telling you about the different trees that you'll see. That's a big deal because this part of Scotland doesn't have a lot of trees. There's a whole history having to do with human intervention and sheep intervention, as well as some climate change that had made these mountains and hills almost completely barren. So to be able to walk through a tree trail and learn about all of the trees is really kind of special here. And if you take the trail on the right upwards, you will head up to a viewpoint where you get an amazing view of the bridge over to the Isle of Skye.
We had no traffic on the causeway as we came across and didn't find that things got crowded until we got to some of the more popular sites on the island. We headed up the island towards Portree. Our Airbnb was just about 10 minutes outside of Portree, and we wanted to get settled in before we started sightseeing. This is our initial route into our Airbnb at Ski Boast, and we'll use this map throughout to show you where all of the sites are. We rented a cottage through Airbnb and have done a video specifically about the cottage with an interior tour as well as views of the outside, so make sure you catch that video as well. We had a week on the Isle of Skye, but it started raining soon after we arrived, and you have to sort of plan that you may not get to use every minute that you have there if you're worried about being out in the rain. So we started our touring almost immediately. We dropped off our bags, got settled, and started out to see what we could see on the island. And this is one of those places, everywhere you go, every street, every turn, there is something to see. There are a few apps we would want to point you towards that will help you take advantage of your time on the island. The Traffic Scotland website is a great place to start anywhere in the country just to check for up-to-date information about situations that could delay your route. There's also a live eye view, which has roadside cameras, and those can be useful as well. But perhaps the most useful app will be the My Skye Time. This app is developed to help you make the most of your visit to Skye and Rousay by showing the volume of human and vehicle traffic at key locations in real time. So it will help you choose the quietest time to see iconic sites like the Old Man of Storr or the Quarring and the ferry pools, and it provides suggestions for alternative attractions, experiences, and walks using the interactive map. It also shows where you can shop and dine across the islands, and where you can find amenities like car parking, EV charging, toilets, medical centers, and even defibrillators. Skye is a big island, and there are things to see in all the parts of it. So whether you're going to the Quarring at the top, Portree in the center, distilleries, or a castle in the south, there's just a lot to do. So it really does make sense to map out your route, figure out what you can legitimately do in a day, and plan that you're going to have some hiccups, whether it's with traffic or parking or just trying to get in good views despite the weather. And if you're doing your own driving, remember that this is Scotland. They're going to be driving on the opposite side from Americans. These are relatively narrow roads, and you have all kinds of vehicles and pedestrians sharing these roads. So you can expect campers and RVs, tour buses, motorcycles, and bicycles. And once you get onto the more narrow roads to get, for instance, up to the Quarring or out at the ferry pools, those roads can feel like single track roads, meaning two cars are using the same lane. That means you've got to learn to pull out, always look ahead for traffic. And because of that, we suggest, even for people like us who we were there for a week, we still took one day where we hired a guide. That way, Jonathan was able to watch the scenery and not just watch the road, and I was able to enjoy the views and not just navigate. So it gave us the freedom to get out and go. And I have to tell you, having a local guide who knows the roads and knows the traffic conditions was such a benefit. We saw more in a day than we were able to accomplish the rest of the time on our own. If you've followed us at all, you know our favorite guide in Scotland is Justin from Share the Tea. He just is the master of history, and he's such a great driver, and we just enjoy his company. But Justin was busy, booked that day, and so we ended up with a true local. We used Wooly from Wooly's Tours and Taxi Services. Wooly took us around in a Jaguar, which was a far bigger car than any one of us would ever have been comfortable driving on these narrow roads. He picked us up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and he did not drop us off until 10 o'clock at night. We used all the daylight we could to get to every part of the island that we could manage. As you can tell, we had some pretty rainy weather the day that we were out, but that can't stop you. If you let rain stop you in Scotland, you'll never get to do anything. We have geographically broken this up into 3 videos. We're going to do one area that's right around Portree, and we'll do an area above that, and then one down to the south and the east of this. And each one will feature the major sites in those areas. as well as some hidden gems and alternatives that you may not be familiar with. And so in this video, we will focus on Portree, Lake Fado, Bridesville Falls, the Old Man of Storr. We'll finish with our drone adventure in some rugged terrain with some curious sheep. And watch the next video for Lilt Falls, Kilt Rock, Staffin, the dinosaur tracks at Ankaran, and the Quirang. Our Airbnb at Aquambeg was just 10 minutes from Portree, so let's start there. If you're staying over and don't have a car, Portree is the best place to stay, as tours will leave from there, and it's easily accessible to stores, shops, restaurants, bed and breakfasts, inns, and cafes. We did our grocery shopping in town at the co-op. There's also a co-op just outside of town that's much bigger. We also had a meal in town and did some sightseeing looking at views. The harbor views are the best from the boardwalk right in front of the water. If you're standing facing the water, you'll see the iconic picture of Portree with its rainbow-colored houses. Behind them is the Lump and the Apothecary's Tower, a nice hiking spot. And from above the rainbow houses, you look across the harbor over to the headlands in the distance, where the Scorebreck Tail offers additional hiking opportunities. The original jail is in a downtown building right next to the church and right across the street from the Royal Hotel. You'll see the Meal House historic marker, but as Wooly tells us, it has a new life now.
It's now the Tourist Information Office.
Skye has a total population of 13,000, and Portree makes up about 2,300 of those people. It's no surprise that Wooly might know a few of those folks.
See you later, Jimmy.
Leaving Portree and heading up the island, you will pass Loch Fada, which has Old Man of Storr in the background and an island in the center of the lake. Right near Loch Fada is Bridesville Falls. It's easily visible from the road, so let's go look. Another stop right by the side of the road and right on the way to Old Man of Storr is Bridesville Falls. It's a lovely waterfall with a small stream at the end of it, right next to the roadside. Do look for parking, as there is marked spots. It just can be crowded, but it's a place that anytime you're driving by, it's just a great stop. Perhaps the most popular site on Skye is the Old Man of Storr. Let's go there next. Visible from the road and just across from the sea is the iconic mountain, the Storr. In front of it is the sanctuary, or a series of weirdly shaped rock pinnacles. There is about a 4-kilometer hike that will take you up to those pinnacles for an incredible view. You do need to be careful in the mud or if it's raining, and allow yourself an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how many stops you want to take. To get some great footage of the rivers and plateaus in the area, but we might have had an accident. That is not a drone you see flying, that is a bird. Our drone is on the other side of this mountain.
Alright, it got blocked by the mountain and I lost it.
Okay.
I can't go up.
We weren't exactly sure where the drone had actually gone down, so we started to assess ways to get to the mountain. But as you can see, even these sure-footed mountain climbing sheep had a hard time traversing these steep ravines and the river. So we just weren't quite sure how we were going to ford this river and get up that mountain and be able to have time to hike around it to look for the drone. Our plan was for Jonathan to drive around to the other side of the mountain and see if he could locate the drone using the controller, while I stayed in place taking pictures of the golden hour. We realized that the drone was somewhere on the other side of the mountain, but we couldn't find a way to get there from where we were. It was just too high, too steep, and too big a river. But we'd climbed the fence and we had gone over towards the left, and that's where we just couldn't find a way to cross the river and get up there, even though it did look slightly less steep over there. So we drove around to the other side of the plateau to see if there was any better or easier access. Mind you, we hadn't seen this footage yet. Even from the other side of the mountain, we still had to cross that river. But we found a metal grate that was placed across it and gave it our best shot. But once we crossed the river, we still had to get across this huge boggy prairie area, over a fence, and then up this mountain. We were on a fairly steep slope, but Jonathan managed to find a way for us to get up to the barbed wire fence. And then he took his jacket, laid it over it so that I could jump the fence without hurting myself. We were trying to triangulate the drone, but we were having really spotty reception on the controller, and it was really hard to see where it was pointed and where we were.
It's going towards home. I'm not sure.
Needle in a haystack.
It's the area where I lost sight of it.
So the best I could do is just start climbing and keeping an eye out. We didn't know what it had last seen or what it was doing. All we knew was we couldn't find it. As I came over the ridge, I definitely had company. These guys were wondering what I was doing. Maybe I was too. Alas, the higher I got, the controller was able to get some signal, and I was able to triangulate it, and guess what?
I found it, and the midges found me.
And since we got the drone back, we have that final footage of its last flight. It did great until it got around the corner, and this was the DJI Mini Pro 3, which does not have side sensors, and so it was not able to recognize that there were rocks in its way. Had it been going forwards or backwards, we would have been fine. We've had a couple of other disasters, and we now have the DJI Mini 4 Pro that has sensors on sides, front and back. We ended our day at the Edinburgh Inn for dinner, and we would highly recommend this place, but you do need to book, and you can book online, but you do need to book ahead. They are very busy during the summer, as are most restaurants in Skye. It's just a well-touristed area, and people are eager to go out for a meal after a long day of hiking and sightseeing. So make your reservations and grab a great dinner. And if you're lucky and it's on season, they will have live music as well.
You've got a series of videos just from Skye. Make sure you catch all of them. They're going to be really special places.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thanks. That's not the introduction.
No.
Line.
Okay.
All right, let me start again.